guinea pig rocket. Then, thanks to the support of their skills, the two moved, in the blink of an eye, to the rocket, ignoring Sophia's screams of terror. That bug. If you're determined, you can melt anything, right? I brought you up here to melt this missile. Just as she turned around to refuse, Sophia was grabbed by Jian and spun around. If we don't do it, both you and I and the innocent people down there will all die. You know? Now is the time for you to pay the price for living carelessly for the past 20 years. Finished speaking, he threw her straight into the missile. Sophia was so scared that she lost control. Scream. You crazy guy. Oh my god, please don't throw it. Screaming was the same. Sophia was thrown by him mercilessly. He told her to go and create the saint's miracle. But all Sophia could say was a guy cursing Jian as a bitch in the blue sky. The guardian angel Aquarius was suddenly summoned to face the powerful missile. Plus the mother saint looked like she was about to pee her pants. Before taking action, the guardian god of Aquarius used all his words to curse Li Jian as crazy, but there was no time left. Sophia also wanted to curse, but she was in too much of a hurry, so she asked the guardian angel to think of a way soon. Not wanting his zodiac star to die, the guardian god Aquarius buffed all the powers he had for Sophia. Looking at the missile in front of her eyes, she screamed loudly and then couldn't control herself and cried out of fear. Unexpectedly, her tears helped activate the goddess's tears skill. A magic circle appeared. Then Sophia's tears turned into waves that bounced towards the guinea pig missile. The two sides fought fiercely as the goddess's tear skill quickly defeated the missile, tearing it into hundreds of pieces. Sophia's mind was spinning. She muttered, "Success," but suddenly woke up, realizing she was falling freely in the air. Moreover, that bastard Li Jian didn't even bother to help him. He just stood to the side and smiled crookedly. You're already reinforced, so it's okay if you fall. Look above at the explosion caused by the waves and rockets colliding with each other, leaving pieces of debris still falling to the ground. Li Jian must quickly find a way. The falling debris is enough to crush several areas. People below could also see the explosion. They were wondering why the missile had already broken up in the air, but the debris falling was enough to scare people to death. Suddenly remembering that the rocket was made by Gemini, he decided to send a grand greeting to that girl. Hugo was at home when suddenly Li Jian's voice rang out. "Howl, my friend, can you hear me?" He was surprised but realized it was Li Jian's sound. So he looked up and asked, "Hello, have you solved that missile yet? The situation is very urgent. I don't have time to explain it to you. Please lend me your absolute coordinates skills." The centaur's absolute coordinates skill is used to move accurately to a designated object. The synergy will be enhanced when combined with guns. Otaxu heard that and thought the situation was really dangerous. So he quickly sent him the absolute coordinates skill without any doubt. The stupid friend took the bait, making Li Jian laugh out loud. "Thank you, slave number one." Very quickly, he received the absolute coordinates skill of the star of the centaur with the number of times he could use the skill being 238. With a cunning smile again, Li Jian combined the absolute coordinates skill of the star centaur with the teleportation skill with the authority of the Gemini Kai Star Guildmaster. He teleported all the fragments from the guinea pig rocket as a gift to the place of the Saint Gemini Kai. The magic circles that overlapped each other caused all the fragments to disappear. The people were overjoyed, and Sung Jae and Yuha were also happy that Uncle Jian had successfully stopped it. Hyuk was also in the middle of the happy crowd but saw something wrong. How could the fragment disappear so easily? Suddenly, the sound from the Yin and Yang Palace, also the Holy Land of the Twin Stars, called Hyuk. As soon as I heard his voice, the other end of the line screamed, "What a stupid son of a bitch. What are you doing using the authority of the Saint President?" He leaned close to the glass and looked outside, seeing fragments of the guinea pig missile falling loudly into the Yin-Yang Palace like in a fantasy movie. After the press conference broadcast in Korea became trending, everyone was talking about the news of Lee Ji-yeon's return after 20 years. At the Blue House of the Presidential Secretary's office, high-ranking Korean officials were discussing rumors that Lee Ji-yeon had returned and defeated the giant saint, and had successfully stopped the guinea pig missile. While talking loudly, suddenly a blue light appeared out of nowhere, penetrating the office's ceiling, causing everyone to scream in fear. From nowhere, Lee Ji-yeon suddenly landed on the conference table. His armpit named Hyuk was so drunk his face couldn't wake up. His other hand was holding Oh Taek-soo, who was still wearing a yellow apron with a lovely bear hanging out. Cough cough cough. What are you little rats whispering about? Why do you look so tense? I'll take this opportunity to settle matters with you. Guys, I'm here to get my money back. You guys are keeping it. The account contains the money from selling my things. Right? After greeting the officials kneeling in the corner of the room, I still couldn't stop the gossiping mouths from gossiping. Isn't this Lee Ji-yeon just on TV? He questioned the group. Why could Oh Taek-soo, who was given his representative status, still not be able to access his account? Sitting in front, threatening the crowd. Would you explain to him properly if you didn't get to work? One of the counselors stood up to explain that the reason was because Hugo was a foreigner. Lee Ji-yeon frowned in confusion. The other man had to continue explaining that since Lee Ji-yeon died, South Korea no longer had any zodiac stars, so it was impossible to trust saints from other countries. Moreover, the power of the centaur also grew weaker and weaker with each event, and finally had to entrust it to someone more trustworthy than Hugo. It was unlucky to come out and explain. But before he could finish his words, Lee Ji-yeon gave him a punch. Why do you do such nonsense? Who are you to choose? Choose that cheap witch. Who are you to dare to despise Oh Taek-soo? He became even more brazen, trying to raise his hand as if he wanted to punch those guys a few more times who looked no different from a few gangsters. The more Ji-yeon talked, the more tense he became. His nostrils flared, asking how dare you disrespect Oh Taek-soo? He was just about to tell the others that he didn't care. But he heard his friend punch him again. Only I, Lee Ji-yeon, have the right to look down on Oh Taek-soo because he is his slave. Not him. Where's your turn for the damned bitches? The pearly words that had just been uttered made Taek-soo shocked, almost to the point of freezing. His whole body, not even daring to believe whether his ears were hearing correctly or not. Asking him over and over again what he had just said. Continue pointing at Taek-soo. This guy, besides being handsome, doesn't have any special talents. Even if he's so poor that he's like a beggar, he's not someone you can treat like that. Oh Taek-soo over here stood still as if waiting for her husband, constantly begging this crazy guy to stop. The officials found it strange. No one dared to insult the centaur saint just now other than Lee Ji-yeon, the leader, but no one dared to speak up, for fear of having their teeth knocked out like that talented man just now. Lee Ji-yeon's curses became clearer and clearer. Even an easygoing person like Taek-soo's face turned black. The more he talked, the angrier he became, and he scolded Oh Taek-soo for being stupid, because why wouldn't he become a naturalized citizen to enjoy that treatment? Oh Taek-soo is currently stiff, unable to apologize and accept all the mistakes on his part. Seeing that, Lee Ji-yeon nobly came to pat him on the shoulder, encouraging him to try harder and live a good life, while Oh Taek-soo could only wipe away his tears. Do you have friends like this who stand up to protect you and curse like this? Let's stop talking. Lee Ji-yeon completely changed his attitude, shaking his hands and looking like he wanted to kill someone. Where is the money? He vomited them all today. He beat them all to death. Before the crowd could speak, a soprano's scream echoed in the air. Hyuk listened and looked up quickly because he knew who was speaking. The purple heel of his shoe was stepped on with a thud, causing Lee Ji-yeon to stretch his brand-hating face and try to see. Hey Jin. As soon as the Gemini saint of the zodiac star arrived, he cursed loudly. We have already accessed it. It's not your turn to worry. Her eyes sparkled when she mentioned the part where the money would be used to repair the Yin-Yang Palace. It was you who did it, right? You sent the fragments of the guinea pig missile to the Anyang Palace. Right? That's why the Yin and Yang Palace was completely destroyed. Do you know how much damage I suffered? She just murderously pointed her finger straight at Li Jian's face to question Li Jian's guilt. Only making Li Jian show a confused expression. He nodded, rubbed his chin and suddenly asked, "Who are you?" Damn it, cursing a guy for so long but not remembering who it was. He Jin was so angry that he bit his lip. And decided to raise his hand and call out a magic formation to wipe out that ragged guy right in front of him. The office workers were scared to death, planning to just stand around and wait for their drama. But it's tiring to see them die. Only Hyuk was interested in the scene of the twin Kai Tin's ultimate secret summoning technique, calling out the soul of the elf queen Larry Queen. A female elf with braided red hair and 2 long horns appeared behind Heiji, adding the effect of touching her feet into the shimmering water. She opened her eyes, and her giant wings appeared like a giant hue porcelain fly. Mrs. Heiji roared and boasted that this was the soul equivalent to a guardian god. Confidently let the miserable guy hug Li Jian and log out right away. Before his sleeves were lowered, Li Jian flew straight to grab this bitch's waist, his mouth screaming, "I'm dead." Li Jian quickly threw away Heiji and flew like a rocket through the hole in the broken ceiling he had just created. The girl jumped straight into the blue sky. The sound of sounded far away as if coming from somewhere. Needless to say, Hyuk was devastated. He ran to the hole and shouted, "Oh Star Master! Oh Star Master!" The remaining elf queen was separated from the Star Master, and her power split into 2 paths. This elf woman seemed wiser, planning to quietly play cards and escape to her lair before it was too late. But how could she fool Li Jian? Before she could make a move to disappear, he quickly grabbed her head and pulled her up. It seemed like catching a goblin was easier than he thought. He just grabbed his hair and pulled it up like a bunch of onions. The monkey cried out, "Please forgive me, please forgive me." With a thud, something collapsed so fast that only a pillar of light could be seen. On the ground, no one else but Heiji landed back in the room in a state of unconsciousness after a long flight. She lost consciousness, causing her ability to control magic power to be disrupted. And her ability to transform, borrowed from the star of the Pisces, also disappeared. Queen Anne Chastise disappeared, revealing a strange woman. Li Jian couldn't be blamed for not recognizing the person in front of him. "Do you think you'll win because this goblin queen is here? Now you guys can see clearly." Li Jian looked at the councilman while holding the goblin queen's hair, causing her to cry out majestically. The transformation into a strange maid made the crowd speechless. But today they call a maid the Star Master? Then the display of power is over. I don't have any money to spare, so bring it out immediately and don't let your father get hot-blooded. A moment later, stars Li Jian and Hugo walked out of the greenhouse with a pile of things under their arms. I told him to give me cash, but he gave me a bunch of documents. But if I had money, I could buy something delicious to eat. Hey, don't you see? That something is. Why doesn't Witch Heiji appear? Isn't she the one who would go crazy right in the middle of the area if she felt angry? It was as if he had planned it in advance, even laughing with satisfaction that the Yin and Yang Palace had collapsed. But it was only natural that Heiji did not appear. That mean girl was trying to endure it without venting. But he probably already knew where she was, so he would find her soon. The next day, at Sung Jae's house, the 4 uncles and nephews were eating as usual. Li Jian took out a hamburger for Sung Jae from his pocket. For some reason, he held it in his hand for a while and then returned it to Jian. He didn't ask. He searched his bag for other things and asked Yuha and Jimin what they wanted to eat. Yuha was hesitating to choose the dish. Suddenly, upon hearing her words, Jian spit the cake straight out. People teased him a little and he was already hooked. Being an old guy like him, he was easily teased. Luckily today, Taek Su was asked by him to do some business. If he saw this scene, he would probably punch all his friends. After eating and drinking, Let's get down to business. Right? 46. The three of them looked down at a box that looked like mica plastic inlaid with eye-catching gold patterns. To be honest, the exhibition box is super sturdy. The Aries Kai Tin's relic holding the elf Queen Larry Queen inside looked like a tiny bug. As soon as she heard Jian's warning to answer correctly, the female demon knelt down and said yes. 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 As good as a puppy. He still didn't stop. He raised the holy book containing everything in written form and threatened. If you don't listen to the strange words, I'll lock you in here. Larry Queen nodded faster than a chicken pecking rice. The first question is also the most important. It's not that dirty witch mother and father is not willing to show up yet. But is it because she can't appear? Larry Queen called out right away. Jian showed his face. Did you know that? He knocked on the floor. Is she locked up here? Sung Jae's family. The two sisters were surprised to see the female elf nodding. Then it's over. I'll give you a chance to just see where that bitch is. Seeing that female elf stammering and not daring to speak, Li Jian immediately continued, now do you want to speak for yourself or let me speak for you? The elf trembled extremely. His face without a drop of blood raised his hand and pointed to a direction in the corner of the room, which was the statue of a holy object given to him in Sung Jae's house. Mom pointed but she didn't dare to look. She only died with Jian and only died with He Jin. Either way she died. Jimin remembers this statue being broken last time. Li Jian was extremely pleased and took the statue and smiled he. Last time he smelled something suspicious. He turned to Jimin and asked that Mother Hyzen and said that she had kissed this thing. Right? That's that lying bastard's positioning magic. Hearing that, Jimin suddenly remembered that he had indeed said that by mistake. But he didn't expect that it was a kind of magic. Saying that, Li Jian activated the 13th sense skill and interfered with the soul space in the statue. Sure enough, that statue screamed her voice, yelling at that guy, Larry Queen. Why did he dare to secretly sell her out like that? Yuha was surprised in many ways, but most surprised that the uncle was right. Is that the voice of the twin saint He Jin in his soul state? Inside the statue, she held her head in frustration and anger, thinking why did things turn out like this? Why did she reveal herself in front of this bastard? It was all because the demon tower collapsed, causing Li Jian's aura to spread everywhere. Even He Jin in the Yin-Yang Palace trembled and dropped the cup. She was the first person to immediately feel the familiar aura coming from the direction of the tower, which gave others goosebumps. It belongs to Li Jian. He is really still alive. And then she immediately left when she learned that Li Jian had returned. Moreover, the next place is the house of his best friend's son, Sung Jae. At first, He Jin thought it was good because her eyes and ears were already there. But because she wanted to confirm it again, she immediately used an instant infusion to enter her soul into this heavenly statue. Looking at the idiot Li Jian was fun until he threw the broken goddess statue on the floor. When Jimin and his nephew cried, she also cried pitifully. It was then that I realized that if the possessed object was destroyed during the soul possession, Hyjin's soul would not be able to escape. So suddenly she was locked in the statue without anyone knowing. When Jimin came to repair this statue because of the intense worship of the Gemini saint, she was so happy. At that time, just using a little cheap healing magic could restore this statue to its original state. But all expectations went down the drain when in Jimin's hand was a bottle of pig glue. No more and no less. Each drop of glue fell, carrying Hyjin's little hopes away in smoke. She cried so much that Jimin didn't know. This guy turned a good pig into a lame pig. So from then on, He Jin was stuck in the statue until today. Seeing that Li Jian gloating about the bullying rumors made her even more angry. He Jin shouted and signaled for Larry Queen to quickly get out of the exhibition box. But instead of obeying orders, the cowardly queen was helpless to speak because she did not want to, could not and would not do it. Because even if she escapes, she will be captured by Li Jian again. So please don't make her do useless things again. I didn't expect that short guy to be so reasonable. In complete contrast to him, Haley's soul was now so angry that she wished she could fly and tear the traitor's clothes. But then her eyes fell on Sung Jae, and she immediately issued an order as the Holy Master of the Twin Stars, forcing Sung Jae to attack Lee Jian immediately. Huh? Why should I do that? That frozen appearance made Hae-jin unable to understand. But it's simple. Because she hasn't seen the miniature Lee Jian museum. She can't understand why he doesn't want to fight with his uncle, who is also his great idol. But he is a saint of the twin star, so fighting with Lee Jian is natural. Sung Jae heard her scream but didn't think it was true, so he just stood there scratching his hair. Hae-jin was about to rush in to do ideological work, but he didn't expect Sung Jae to say, "So it's okay if I leave Gemini Star?" Hey. Hae-jin stopped for about 5 seconds, hovering in the room, and asked, "What's wrong? I am truly a Gemini saint. But Uncle Lee Jian is a hero in my eyes. If Gemini's people were the reason why the two of us became enemies, then we should leave now." Sung Jae decisively took the holy name from his pocket and returned it to Hae-jin before her surprised eyes. At the same time, the badge fell to the ground. The whole building shook violently like there was an earthquake. Hae-jin shouted loudly, "This is the punishment of the guardian angel Gemini because the apostle is heading towards the constellation Ophiuchus. So the traitor will suffer the wrath and receive punishment." Immediately Sung Jae was knocked out by the magic power of the guardian god. His eye sockets, nose and mouth all bled, causing him to collapse on the floor. Needless to say, Yuha and Jimin were so panicked, seeing their younger brother lose consciousness and hit his head on the floor. Yuha was scared and Hae-jin also roared in pain. "I pray to the guardian god you sent. You are a candidate for the position of successor, so I will be forgiven by the god. You just need to attack Lee Jian and that's it." Sung Jae forced himself to tremble on the floor. "House." And the vicious voice criticizing Lee Jian as an untrustworthy scoundrel still echoed throughout the room. "It's so noisy. Shut the fuck up," Sung Jae roared when he remembered the time Hyuk asked him and left Jimin and the others behind to run. Then Yang Wei, unable to deal with the spider monster, wanted to tear down the entire supermarket car. No one cares. Every time they encounter something unfavorable, they abandon others. Only Uncle Lee Jian truly cares about others, always willing to put himself in danger to save people or even his own life. So the only hero in Sung Jae's eyes is Uncle Lee Jian. And now stop using your eyes to judge others. You damn dogs. Sung Jae roared fiercely, his whole body emitting blue energy despite his eyes, nose, and mouth bleeding loudly. His words caused the Gemini god prayer to appear in the dim purple space. "She will punish Saint Sung Jae to the highest degree. And by the way, send Lee Jian, the cause of this rebellion, away." But it seemed like she had forgotten who was here. Lee Jian's mouth mumbled through the abyss of space, with sharp cuts following Lee Jian's hand swinging several times on the twin guardian angel's body. But this time he didn't laugh anymore, leaving fear in the eyes of the guardian angel Gemini. At the same time, in the Yin and Yang Palace, the Gemini apostle was trying to control the destruction of the falling guinea pig missile fragments. A tree cannot grow. The church calls in more water magicians to control it, but it's very strange. Suddenly the strength in his hand disappeared, as did the others on the other side. All Gemini saints are unable to use magical power, or to be more precise, can no longer feel any power. He signaled to contact the apostles elsewhere before losing control, but received the same answer. Neither telepathy nor teleportation can be used, and even Doraemon's magical door that Gemini is always proud of has completely disappeared. Even the apostles who were struggling with disasters also lost connection completely. This was as if the Gemini star's magic had completely disappeared into nothingness. That's because Jian made a slash that made the guardian god's power disappear right in front of the crowd. He smiled lightly. This aluminum-ass nephew almost ended up in danger because of his uncle's report. walking up to Sung Jae with his trademark smile. He gently thanked Sung Jae for always trusting him. It was really fun, kid. It was not easy to hear Lee Ji-yeon's kind words. Sung Jae looked up and was moved to tears. In less than 2 seconds, I heard the mother's shrill voice, or Haejin. What have you done to me? You son of a bitch. Her face was confused, asking what the guy in front of her had just done that made her lose all her strength, as if she had completely severed the connection with her twin guardian goddess Frasier. That's right. To talk about the origin from the beginning. The gods spent huge resources and had to take high risks when intervening in this world. That's why the gods often choose a saint for themselves and give power to their representatives, who are called the stars of the zodiac. The representative will continue to share his power with the apostles below. It can be said briefly that the gods are the factories that create power, and the zodiac stars are the electric transformers and transmission towers. The remaining apostles would be countless sources of electricity coming in and out. So the immediate loss of power was due to the sole reason of not being able to connect with the god anymore. He slammed his hand on the ground, making Haejin startled and then smirked, feeling no different from a normal person because he no longer had any strength like that. Confidently introduced to her that using the abyss to sever connections is the trick that fallen Cancer likes to do the most. Abyss Break is a Cancer's ultimate sulfur monosulfide level skill, aimed at cutting off everything desired even if it cannot be seen with the naked eye. But Lee Ji-yeon also upgraded it to another level. He shook his finger to show off that he had now severed the contract between the agent and the guardian god. Haejin roared and cursed him. Immediately cutting off the connection between the representative and the gods was a forbidden action. She was afraid of receiving the wrath of the zodiac god when he found out. But Lee Ji-yeon didn't care. Looking close to his murderous face, pointing to the sky with a wide smile like a villain, he said directly that he wanted to do that to eliminate all those damn guardians. Haejin's jaw froze. This guy is crazy. Do you know what you just said? Before they could utter a word, a purple bolt of lightning struck right between the two of them. Since when did the sky turn purple? Countless screams were heard. The clouds swirled in large holes, soon sucking in the wind, to form a tornado that blew away everything in its path. The Gemini guardian angel was enraged by the loss of connection between her and the saints and used her power directly in the human city. The mother became angry, causing a blinding light to flash. Then a loud noise that shook the earth and sky. The vortex of smoke flew in front of where the crowd stood, and from there emerged the shape of the giant twin goddess Frasier, glaring at Lee Ji-yeon. But he is already a perverted male protagonist. He put his hands in his pockets and laughed. It wasn't even dark yet and the floor light was on. Grandma. The whirlwind was reduced to just the purple magic array, and soon Frasier appeared with a frown on her face and her hair flying like Medusa. After less than a second of appearing, she got angry and waved her hand to summon such great power that the system had to immediately issue a warning. Temporarily putting aside his trademark joking expression, Lee Ji-yeon took out the items from the inventory. Frasier didn't know what that elegant guy was doing. She just wanted to hit the ground loudly. Only later did I realize something was wrong. At first glance, it looked like a flashlight, but it turned out to be a cancer nucleus fragment that he used to absorb Frasier's power. Needless to say, just looking at that thing makes me want to frown. Each with the zodiac always has things that counteract each other. It sucks Gemini's power into it and turns into a cool breeze, making him smile happily again. It's a pity that my beloved Zemi is no longer with me. If he could still hold that sword in his hand, no matter where he was a god, he would cut it clean. By the way, summoning the creative workshop always gives it blood. Things like gemstone fragments, lightning, and twins whirlwinds he already has in hand. Although I felt a bit regretful about this limited piece of crystal, I had to use it to make something better. Lee Ji-yeon slammed his hand into the piece of crystal and pulled out a brand new scythe. The interface looks cool, but Ji-yeon's workshop is just a thatched roof and lacks manufacturing skills, So this is just a disposable item that cannot be recycled. That was enough to make him put a mischievous smile on his lips. Activating his fighting instinct, Jian looked like the reincarnation of a bloodthirsty snake, stomping his foot down and making a decisive line from top to bottom, causing the goddess Frieza to roar loudly. He still held his face in pain and had to get dozens of stitches along with the humiliation and temporary stopping to scream and not be able to do more. The kids and Heijin widened their eyes at the zodiac goddess that he could chop like firewood. Was she still human? It's unclear whether it was human or not. But the scythe shattered right in Jian's hand after the attack just now. Frieza's mother looked like she was having a fit. Her face was full of veins showing the peak of anger, causing her to lose her reason. Dozens of black holes swirling in the sky were interpreted by the system as the power of her wanting to vent her hatred on the world, from which hundreds of thousands of soldiers and all kinds of monsters were seen waiting for orders. The zodiac goddess looks so beautiful, but the creatures she summons are so ugly and painful that they can't bear it. The entire sky of the city was pockmarked with huge holes of many sizes, emitting the roaring sound of the bloodthirsty army, when suddenly the opposite side of the sky shot out a giant fireball that fell straight towards Frieza. Li Jian looked and realized that the thing that had just landed was on fire. But it was not the Uchiha's Kokuchi no Jutsu, but the centaur saint in a combat outfit had just appeared, making his two children scream loudly. Right next to him, behind Hugo, the male Sagittarius archangel was crossing his arms, looking clearly unhappy. Speaking for the taciturn centaur, Hugo slowly told her to stop her intrusion. Fraser, if she took one more step, she would be breaking the rules. Looking at Hugo's face, he was so tense that he knew he wasn't joking. But in Fraser's eyes, Apollo was just a weak god. There's no point in doing anything. But everything was in Hugo's calculations. Only the pure strength of the centaur would not be able to do anything. However, they were not the only ones who objected. The other gods looked down and expressed their displeasure at Fraser's direct intervention in life. To consolidate their territory, they sent warnings forcing the Gemini's forces to retreat continuously. The girl was confused due to being stoned. A summoning spell appeared in the sky, from which a long chain appeared, shooting down towards the place where Fraser was still bewildered, wrapping tightly around her. This is a punishment for the other gods' crimes of breaking the rules. Through the chain takes away most of her energy so she can be less disruptive. If this warning blow continues, Fraser will face extreme hostility from the other gods. The scene stirred up a dusty atmosphere, except for the young children who stood there looking dumbfounded. The adults found it quite amusing. Of course, Mother Heijin is not happy to see her chained up like a pet. Only by doing so can she stand still and listen to Hugo's criticism, reminding Fraser and the other gods not to sit still. He spoke fiercely, asking her if she dared to disturb the water further to receive a greater punishment. Fraser gritted his teeth and looked at Hugo with bitter eyes, then let out a roar that shattered the glass door, piercing the psychologically traumatized eardrums of those present. Fiercely pointing her finger down at Hugo's star fruit brothers, she meant to say that today's events will never be forgotten. Just wait there. Li Jian has nothing to worry about. He's happy to show off his middle finger while still talking nonsense. One more thing. Next time, remember to bring your brother with you. It was spicier than eating chili. But Fraser knew he couldn't do anything anymore. She turned into scattered purple pieces that mixed with the air and gradually disappeared before the crowd's eyes. Once the work is done, it's time to receive the reward. The notification system has Li Jian added a reward to trample on the pride of the Gemini absolute god recognized by the entities observing this world. In addition, he also receives a large amount of zodiac experience. When he reaches level 10, he will face special experiences. After happily reading the announcement, Li Jian immediately turned to his close friend Oh Taek-su, who was saying goodbye to Apollo and the children as if they had just returned from a miserable labor service somewhere. He put his arm around his shoulder and praised his friend's precise timing. It was over, but he was still very angry. Because thinking about Frasier torturing Sung Jae's son made him grit his teeth, wishing that an arrow could pierce her head. Seeing that his friend was bitter and unhappy, Lee Ji-yeon affirmed that it would be quick. Just be patient and they would destroy her brothers until not even a single bone remained. That confident look made Hugo feel warm and silently thank him. Then suddenly remembered. So he reached out and took out from his body what Lee Ji-yeon needed him to bring back from the Anyang Palace. As soon as he saw the spirit book, he burst into laughter. He needed evidence to record the soul contract linked to the twins. Hae-jin of course recognized his belongings. And she screamed. How could Hugo sneak something that was strictly guarded at the highest security level? That's all in theory. But the ability to infiltrate and hide is the basic skill of an archer. Like Hugo, not to mention the Gemini badge that Lee Ji-yeon gave him. Lee Ji-yeon ignored the two people arguing nonsense on the other side and turned around to open the spirit book. In the list of linked souls, there were several powerful characters, such as the one-eyed maniac Berserk, or the giant King Zotan, or even the giant King Zotan. Even the legendary warrior king at the Hour of Fire was also present. Yet all three have surrendered to the planet Safu, allowing Ji-yeon to accept them as his clan members or prisoners. The commanding soul character who is sealed at the bottom of the abyss in the Yin and Yang Ocean also expressed his intention to surrender. This sealed soul is very likely to reach a mythical level, which is why it is imprisoned like that. It's cool to get many people to submit to your pocket. But asking Ji-yeon to accept it right away is a no-brainer. He asked if he wanted to be on my side. Let's try to prove his sincerity. The ornate letters on the spiritual book lit up and then flew haphazardly into the sky above his head. They swirled like a smoothie and from there appeared a girl who suddenly fell upside down and fell to the ground. At first glance, Lee Ji-yeon was shocked to the core. But no one was the most surprised. Especially Mother Hae-jin. Because even when she was near the moon, she could see that it was her body that had been given to him as a gift by the souls that surrendered to Lee Ji-yeon. My cheeks were so funny. Lee Ji-yeon opened his mouth and laughed like he was crazy. He didn't expect them to be so funny, so he accepted them all. Souls linked to Gemini quickly submit to the Safu star. The system announced that Lee Ji-yeon had to give them names. But he was naturally lazy. So he just called the group of subordinates in the order of 1, 2, 3, and continued. Hae-jin's soul screamed majestically from behind and was about to curse the bastard Lee Ji-yeon. But he immediately strangled her, reminding her that the gem of a gem had abandoned her property to run for someone else. So she was completely alone. If you were reasonable, would you answer whether or not she was the one who secretly stabbed him in the back in the demon waterfall? Hae-jin was speechless and showed no signs of opening up, only to make Lee Ji-yeon extremely angry. He gently used the magic power from his fingertips to lightly press on her forehead, which was enough to make her go to pieces. Hey kid, I'm using the broken piece of the scythe just now to touch your head. If you don't tell me quickly, you'll feel your soul being torn into pieces. Hae-jin was in so much pain that he cried, but Lee Ji-yeon didn't stop. The magic power from him was so strong that the kids didn't dare to come close. The light emitted made even Larry Queen and Hugo have to carefully keep their distance. Unable to stand it any longer, Hae-jin raised his head and screamed. It was a woman of history, closing the prestigious sentence with a scream because the female historian was being punished by heaven. Lee Ji-yeon's eyes widened as soon as he received the answer. With a bang, the magic on Hae-jin's head shattered. Lee Ji-yeon finally forgave her, but the pain made that mouth unable to utter a word. He smirked. You should have said it sooner, then you wouldn't have had to endure such extreme pain. As a reward for this very useful information, I will give you your body back. I thought it was a good bet. It was like she was reincarnated, but something was a bit wrong. Why could her body stand up on its own? Larry Queen in Hae-jin's body was howling with crazy joy. She couldn't choose to release her. But releasing her soul like that was fine. His mouth kept saying sorry for accidentally giving his body to Larry Queen. But Lee Jian was clearly laughing. He comfortably accepted Larry Queen's embrace in Haijin's body, allowing the villain to live freely right before the wide eyes of his master. The next day at Sung Jae's house, Yang Wei and Larry Queen argued about what needed to be fixed. In the stack of S-class soul contracts created exclusively by the Women's Historical Society, it seems that since Larry Queen was brought back in this form, he has become Lee Jian's powerful henchman. She looked like she was working enthusiastically, even asking him to give her a list of souls so she could make all of them strong and even reach SS level. But in contrast to this side, in the other exhibition box is a statue containing the soul of Hei Jin, crying for release. But even if I were to let him go now, it wouldn't do anything because there's no body left to let him enter. Suddenly there is a new announcement. Lee Jian can now learn the new skill of Sa Fu's contract. While he was still pondering how to use this, the newly recruited gods were noisily flattering him like a group of clowns. Their souls hang around the house. Every time Jian looks over, there's a scream of "Oh, oh, oh, he's looking at me." It was really funny. Jian turned around and chatted with Taek Su next to him, thinking that gods must be very arrogant. Who would have thought that they would end up like this? Taek Su regained his composure and was about to say more, but the ice god pointed his face and cursed like some fishmonger on the street. Hey, that guy is Mr. Jian's servant and dares to talk nonsense? Who does his mother say is his servant? Taek Su turned to stone and stood there, waiting for his friend to open his mouth to help. Who would have thought that that evil thing waved his hand at Taek Su and told him that he was his #1 slave? How could he be a servant? From each ice god, now the three gods pointedly insulted the slave Taek Su for daring to stand in front of his master. Having missed something, Lee Jian asked the reason why the three of them turned around and left their twin star on their side. Bowing their heads in self-pity, they said in unison that they couldn't stand Fraser's beautiful and violent mother. It's new for Jian to believe such nonsense. After only 2 seconds they all said the same thing together. The real reason is that we all felt very satisfied when we saw the twin star being beaten to death by Lee Jian. If the land is good, the bird will perch. Whoever is bold, this god will change sides. It's not just the gods. Master, the other gods and the legion commanders have also decided to surrender. It's just a pity that they were detained under the sanctuary so they are not present here. Humanity has now lost more than half of the earth to unclassified disasters. Although at a glance the zodiac stars are still maintaining a balance with them. But in reality, they did not even dare to reclaim the territories taken over by those disasters, but huddled together to try to fend off the attempt to take over the rest of humanity. The holy place that imprisons other gods at the bottom of the Yin-Yang Palace is near the Pacific Ocean and is quite close to the disaster area of unknown fate. It was so dangerous that he had to go check out the situation himself. The voices of the other 3 men interrupted my thoughts. When they returned, they knelt down and swore to dedicate their lives to Lee Jian. Okay, this trio looks reputable. Lee Jian smiled his trademark smile and called the group of 3 gods to prepare to go. There was something they needed to do. Seeing with his own eyes the skillful manipulation of the gods, Sung Jae immediately exclaimed with joy that his uncle was so cool. Just after telling her younger brother that he was right, Yuha suddenly lowered her face, gave a devilish smile, and blurted out, "It's good that I proposed to you." The child's very normal words penetrated the ears of her uncle, her biological father and the trio of gods, leaving the whole group silent. Still looking down, Jian knew he had already lost his shit. His friend's cold gaze looked straight at his back and then pressed close to his face to interrogate him. Yuha said, "Is it true?" Jian bit his lower lip and trembled before his friend's stiff voice repeated. "Is it a proposal or a marriage proposal? So Hugo will become the father-in-law of Lee Jian." The yellow-toothed rabbit